This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, it's great to have you guys here, and I'm going to share my screen so that we can start reading since it's already 12:30. All right. So
I'm
the
sorry,
place-
Terry, what are we on? Section 2, section
Two,
2.
chapter 2, section 2, the place of religion in psychotherapy.
I see that now. Thank you.
You got it? Okay, great.
Yep.
To be a teacher of God, it is not necessary to be religious or even to believe in God to any recognizable extent. It is necessary, however, to teach forgiveness rather than condemnation. Even in this, complete consistency is not required. For one who had achieved that point could teach salvation completely, within an instant and without a word. Yet he who has learned all things does not need a teacher, and the healed have no need for a therapist. Relationships are still the temple of the Holy Spirit, and they will be made perfect in time and restored to eternity. Formal religion has no place in psychotherapy, but it also has no real place in religion. In this world, there is an astonishing tendency to join contradictory words into one term without perceiving the contradiction at all. The attempt to formalize religion is so obviously an ego attempt to reconcile the irreconcilable that it hardly requires elaboration here. Religion is experience. Psychotherapy is experience. At the highest levels, they become one. Neither is true itself, but both can lead to truth. What can be necessary to find truth, which remains perfectly obvious, but to remove the seeming obstacles to true awareness? No one who learns to forgive can fail to remember God. Forgiveness, then, is all that need be taught, because it is all that need be learned. All blocks to the remembrance of God are forms of unforgiveness and nothing else. This is never apparent to the patient, and only rarely so to the therapist. The world has marshaled all its forces against this one awareness, for in it lies the ending of the world and all it stands for. Yet it is not the awareness of God that constitutes a reasonable goal for psychotherapy. This will come when psychotherapy is complete. For where there is forgiveness, truth must come. It would be unfair indeed if belief in God were necessary to psychotherapeutic success. Nor is belief in God a really meaningful concept, for God can be but known. Belief implies that unbelief is possible, but knowledge of God has no true opposite. Not to know God is to have no knowledge, and it is to this that all unforgiveness leads. And without knowledge, one can have only belief. Different teaching aids appeal to different people. Some forms of religion have nothing to do with God, and some forms of psychotherapy have nothing to do with healing. Yet if pupil and teacher join in sharing one goal, God will enter into their relationship because he has been invited to come in. In the same way, a union of purpose between patient and therapist restores the place of God to ascendance, first through Christ's vision, and then through the memory of God himself. The process of psychotherapy is the return to sanity. Teacher and pupil, therapist and patient, are all insane, or they would not be here. Together, they can find a pathway out, for no one will find sanity alone. If healing is an invitation to God to enter into his kingdom, what difference does it make how the invitation is written? Does the paper matter, or the ink, or the pen? Or is it he who writes that gives the invitation? God comes to those who would restore his world, for they have found the way to call to him. If any two are joined, he must be there. It does not matter what their purpose is, but they must share it wholly to succeed. It is impossible to share a goal not blessed by Christ, for what is unseen through his eyes is too fragmented to be meaningful. As true religion heals, so must true psychotherapy be religious. But both have many forms, because no good teacher uses one approach to every pupil. On the contrary, he listens patiently to each one and lets him formulate his own curriculum. Not the curriculum's goal, but how he can best reach the aim it sets for him. Perhaps the teacher does not think of God as part of teaching. Perhaps the psychotherapist does not understand that healing comes from God. They can succeed where many who believe they have found God will fail. What must the teacher do to ensure learning? What must the therapist do to bring healing about? Only one thing, the same requirement salvation asks of everyone. Each one must share one goal with someone else, and in so doing, lose all sense of separate interests. Only by doing this is it possible to transcend the narrow boundaries the ego would impose upon the self. Only by doing this can teacher and pupil, therapist and patient, you and I, accept at one-ment and learn to give it as it was received. Communion is impossible alone. No one who stands apart can receive Christ's vision. It is held out to him, but he cannot hold out his hand to receive it. Let him be still and recognize his brother's need is his own. And let him then meet his brother's need as his, and see that they are met as one, for such they are. What is religion but an aid in helping him to see that this is so? And what is psychotherapy except a help in just this same direction? It is the goal that makes these processes the same, for they are one in purpose and must thus be one in means. Good to have everyone here, Carol and Tim and Mary. I love this part. It's been such a long time since I've read The Process of Psychotherapy, but in remembering it, I love how this is put. I remember this one person came to our Course in Miracles study group, and I remember him saying, "I'm an atheist." And I remember thinking, okay, what does that mean to you? And he was basically explaining that he doesn't believe that there's this God that sits on a throne outside of us. And I said, well, in that case, I'm an atheist too, because I don't believe that either. So I think it's just interesting how these words get in our mind, you know, what is God? Who is God? What is psychotherapy? What is religion? You know, and then when you take all of the old meanings away, it really is very simple. Any thoughts about this?
I love that comment in paragraph 2, where it talks about formal religion has no place in psychotherapy, also has no real place in religion. In this world, there's an astonishing tendency to join contradictory words into one term without perceiving the contradiction at all. That's organized religion right there. You know what I mean? There's so many things that people, the indoctrination makes people believe, like for real, that it's just obviously an ego attempt to reconcile the irreconcilable. That hardly requires elaboration here. That was always one of my biggest things with an organized religion, you know, that why do I have to believe exactly the way you're telling me to believe? And why, so anyway, this is a perfect explanation of how that works.
Yeah, I know. I guess I never realized just how impactful this particular section was to me as well.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Barry,
interesting.
where I've looked through a couple of my books. The one is the one, oh, you can't see it. Is it focused?
Does it
That
have supplements, Tim?
won't focus. But anyway, I've looked, through the table and so forth. I cannot find the psychotherapy.
So this one, if you look down here, it says supplements.
Ah,
So this particular book has what's called supplements. Some of them are actually separate books. I think I actually have this.
wait, my wife has one here. Now I see it. Got it. Okay,
That's it.
good. Now I am complete.
Yeah, so there's also, this one is just the supplements.
Oh, yeah,
And then this one is just psychotherapy.
I see. Okay, wow.
So,
Yeah, I don't have that either. And of all the years I've been doing this, I never even knew that psychotherapy part existed.
it's interesting, right?
I've
Yeah.
never gone through that. Yeah, we've never gone through it. That's
Yeah.
really fun.
If you ever want to see it or reread it, Cynthia, it's, I think we talked about it before. It's,
Yeah.
ACIM.org. And
Mhm.
it
Oh,
all
yeah,
pops
it
up,
would
and
be
then you
there.
can read it there too, so.
Yes,
That's
thank
what
you.
I'm sharing with my screen. I'm sharing it from acim.org/psychotherapy.
Okay.
Mhm. So, any other comments about what we just read? Or should we carry on?
But I just wanted to share personally, I've got my members of my family, quite a few go to therapy, and they're trying to encourage me to go, and I'm like, oh boy, what a I don't know, I shouldn't be that way. But all they're gonna do is just give me the tools. Every day when I go to the next lesson, I have another tool that works just as effective as the one the day before, which, it's putting into practice, remembering it. I now have an app on my phone to help me remember to practice it. So, it's just keeping that alive, and I don't know, how do you say that, if something is more present with you each and every month or whatever, it finally is kind of like, I just sort of like try, although sometimes I'll make snap decisions, and and it's like, my son especially doesn't like that. And I said, well, Michael, I'll always be, right there for you. I said, well, I don't need you to be right there. I need you to, stop and think a little bit. So, I had to listen to that. Yeah, okay. So my mother's way of, blah, 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 let's go, 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 is I could learn some stuff from my son. So, hey, we learn from everybody. We're
I
all
think
one.
Yeah, I think the thing that I really got out of this this time was that whether it's religion, whether it's Course in Miracles, whether it's psychotherapy, whether it's having a conversation with a friend, it really has more to do with wherever two are joined, right? Like you can't do it on your own. It's done with another, with a brother, right? So whether it's your therapist, your son, your mother, your friend, your whoever, your priest, whatever it is that you're doing, it's when now the goal is the same, right? When each person can lose sight of their separate interests and you have a unified goal. And that's where the healing is. That's where the at-one-ment really is.
Yeah. And seeing yourself in the other, a
Yeah.
union of purpose,
Exactly.
not lording over someone.
Yeah, when you can let go of your self-interests completely,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's carry on because the next one looks very interesting as well. We get into The role of the psychotherapist. The psychotherapist is a leader in the sense that he walks slightly ahead of the patient and helps him to avoid a few of the pitfalls along the road by seeing them first. Ideally, he is also a follower, for one should walk ahead of him to give him light to see. Without this one, both will merely stumble blindly on to nowhere. It is, however, impossible that this one be wholly absent if the goal is healing. He may, however, not be recognized. And so the little light that can be then accepted is all there is to light the way to truth. Healing is limited by the limitations of the psychotherapist, as it is limited by those of the patient. The aim of the process, therefore, is to transcend these limits. Neither can do this alone. But when they join, the potentiality for transcending all limitations has been given them. Now, the extent of their success depends on how much of this potentiality they are willing to use. The willingness may come from either one at the beginning, and as the other shares it, it will grow. Progress becomes a matter of decision. It can reach almost to heaven or go no further than a step or two from hell. It is quite possible for psychotherapy to seem to fail. It is even possible for the result to look like retrogression. But in the end, there must be some success. One asks for help, another hears and tries to answer in the form of help. This is the formula for salvation and must heal. Divided goals alone can interfere with perfect healing. One wholly egoless therapist could heal the world without a word, merely by being there. No one needs see him or talk to him or even know of his existence. His simple presence is enough to heal. The ideal therapist is one with Christ. But healing is a process, not a fact. The therapist cannot progress without the patient. And the patient cannot be ready to receive the Christ, or he could not be sick. In a sense, the egoless psychotherapist is an abstraction that stands at the end of the process of healing, too advanced to believe in sickness and too near to God to keep his feet on the earth. Now he can help through those in need of help, for thus he carries out the plan established for salvation. The psychotherapist becomes his patient, working through other patients to express his thoughts as he receives them from the mind of Christ. Any thoughts about that?
That part about how the simple presence of someone, a wholly egoless therapist, could heal the world without a word, merely by being there. That kind of went like, because, all right, so why hasn't that happened? Like, where's that person? Or has it happened and we just don't recognize it? Or like, that was very confusing for me.
I feel like I've been in the presence of people like that. Like when you and I went to John of God, even though he, in the end got a pretty bad rap for some other things.
Yeah.
So obviously he wasn't completely egoless.
Yeah.
But I definitely felt that presence, just being in that room of people that had united purpose.
Right.
Like it was palpable. You could, it was like walking through soup, right? Did you feel that?
The energy was thick.
It was thick, right? You could feel it. Alicia and I went to see John of God a few years back at Omega. Yeah. And it was an amazing experience.
You could almost even feel it on the grounds, even before we got to that huge tent. There was like the air was vibrating. It was just,
You could really feel it. And,
It was
and
a
we didn't go there like super believers. We went there like, who is this guy?
and let's check this out.
Let's check this out. What is this all about? What's this water?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. But I mean, in response to that, like, yes, in that moment, you could feel that oneness, that presence that just allowed that feeling to, but it's not lasting, because as soon as you're back out in the world or away from that particular vibe, it's very easy for you to, again, forget. So I don't know, where's the lasting effect of that feeling of oneness? Why doesn't it stick around? Is it because we forget? Is it because we regress back to our default setting? But if we're all one mind and we are existing within that one mind, and there is a presence within that one mind that has that ability to heal everything all at once, then what the hell is going on here?
That is a good question. That is a good question. I mean, I guess I could kind of say it's like going to the gym, and when you're in the gym and working out, you feel great and you've got all this energy. And then when you go eat a, Big Mac and a milkshake and French fries, your body all of a sudden goes, ugh.
Yeah.
And it doesn't want to get up and go do any of that other stuff. I feel like it all depends on what you're feeding your mind and your practice, right? Your spiritual practice. Are you continually making strides in that direction of peace?
Yeah.
Is peace your only objective, right? Because you have choice, you have 60,000 thoughts a day and you have free will. So it goes back to, being vigilant of
It's
your
that
thoughts.
24/7 vigilance. For me, there's times it's exhausting. That's when I just want to close this book and just put it away for a little bit. I just got to process, because it's a circuit overload. For me personally, even though this is simple concepts that sometimes we find difficult to apply, well, it's as difficult as you make it. It's a decision in every moment. Am I going for peace and love? Am I going to be of this world in thinking about this particular situation or making this particular decision?
Yeah.
For me
So take
personally,
heart,
it's exhausting.
take heart, Alicia. Once you finally achieve that peace and recognize that it's yours to keep and not just a fleeting thing, then all the rest gets just so easy and so much fun. And so you get to be there. And that's how it is when we're in a group. Like you said, you could feel the energy. It's so palpable that you get swept up, because we are energy. And so you get swept up in that whole ocean of energy. Then you come out, and then it becomes more or less your choice to still feel that energy around you all the time, to know it is there, and it is, but you have to send out that antennae to allow yourself to recognize that even though the energy is not in force in this world, shall we say, it still is available to you when you make that higher consciousness connection. But it just envelops you in the moment of it just being here and now. And it is that joining that then gives you the opportunity to carry it with you, because you've had the experience.
Yes, thank you, Mary.
I'll say something else too. Did you read today's lesson, Alicia?
I have not yet read it. No.
Today's lesson, it's interesting because it makes you look at the world, and the lesson is, the world I see holds nothing that I want.
Yeah.
And, we were talking earlier about you were all excited, Jonna's wedding and blah, blah, blah. Well, then, of course, I have a granddaughter and there's all these other things in the world. And you think, oh, we've got these grandchild's coming and all this other things, all these things are happening. But if you read this lesson, you literally have to let go of everything in the world, right? So everything must
Even
serve
the good
purpose.
stuff that you think you're looking forward to, it's just letting go of that.
Exactly. It's a chain that binds you to the world and it will serve no other end but this. And it's a long, long lesson, but at the very end, it says, protect your mind throughout the day as well. And when you think you see some value in an aspect or an image of the world, refuse to lay this chain upon your mind, but tell yourself with quiet certainty, this will not tempt me to delay myself. The world I see holds nothing that I want.
That's powerful.
Yeah,
So-
that's really good.
So there's your answer, right?
Exactly. I will be
That's
sure
what,
to go back and read that after.
Yeah.
class. Yeah.
that's what pulls us back in. It's not just the bad stuff, it's the good stuff too that pulls us back in.
Sometimes it's the good stuff more so, because then you seek more good stuff. You want,
And then you want to protect the good stuff, right?
absolutely,
Right.
absolutely, true.
Yeah, it's like a continuous Easter egg hunt, Oh, that was another truth. Put it in my basket. Whatever. I don't know why I thought of that. It works.
We were talking about this earlier in another group,
Mhm.
and you learn to let go of the things and the focus on the things, and that helps you to be in the space between the things, which is your peace.
The joy.
And then joy naturally comes in that state of true peace, because that state of peace doesn't have all the fear
Right.
in it. So then joy comes and love extends and that multiplies and on it goes. But it is not that the things themselves don't have value, but the experience of the things have amazing value to help us to get to our true selves.
Sure. It's all in the relationships, right? Carol, did you want to share something too?
Well, this relates, I think, to what Alicia was saying. And now the extent of their success depends on, this is line 4 in paragraph 2. Now the extent of their success depends on how much of this potentiality that we have we're willing to use. The willingness may come from either one at the beginning, and as the other shares it, it will grow. Progress becomes a matter of decision. It can reach almost to heaven or could go back down to hell.
Yeah, right. Right.
So that willingness again, and the recognition of choice, the potential is there, but will we reach for it? Yeah.
Exactly. All right, shall we continue, or does anybody else have something they'd like to share regarding what we just read? Good conversation. Let's keep going. The process of illness. As all therapy is psychotherapy, so all illness is mental illness. It is a judgment on the Son of God, and a judgment is a mental activity. Judgment is a decision made again and again against creation and its creator. It is a decision to perceive the universe as you would have created it. It is a decision that truth can lie and must be lies. What then can illness be except an expression of sorrow and of guilt? And who could weep but for his innocence? Once God's Son is seen as guilty, illness becomes inevitable. It has been asked for and will be received. And all who ask for illness have now condemned themselves to seek for remedies that cannot help, because their faith is in the illness and not in salvation. There can be nothing that a change of mind cannot affect, for all external things are only shadows of a decision already made. Change the decision, and how can its shadow be unchanged? Illness can be but guilt's shadow, grotesque and ugly since it mimics deformity. If a deformity is seen as real, what could its shadow be except deformed? The descent into hell follows step by step in an inevitable course, once the decision that guilt is real has been made. Sickness and death and misery now stalk the earth in unrelenting waves, sometimes together and sometimes in grim succession. Yet all these things, however real they seem, are but illusions. Who could have faith in them once this is realized? And who could not have faith in them until he realizes this? Healing is therapy or correction. And we have said already, and will say again, all therapy is psychotherapy. To heal the sick is but to bring this realization to them. The word cure has come into disrepute among the more respectable therapists of the world, and justly so, for not one of them can cure, and not one of them understands healing. At worst, they but make the body real in their own minds, and having done so, seek for magic by which to heal the ills with which their minds endow it. How could such a process cure? It is ridiculous from start to finish. Yet, having started, it must finish thus. It is as if God were the devil and must be found in evil. How could love be there? And how could sickness cure? Are not these both one question? At best, and the word is perhaps questionable here, the healers of the world may recognize the mind as the source of illness, but their error lies in the belief that it can cure itself. This has some merit in a world where degrees of error is a meaningful concept. Yet must their cures remain temporary or another illness rise instead? For death has not been overcome until the meaning of love is understood. And who can understand this without the word of God, given by him to the Holy Spirit as his gift to you? Illness of any kind may be defined as a result of a view of the self as weak, vulnerable, evil, and endangered, and thus in need of constant defense. Yet, if such were really the self, defense would be impossible. Therefore, the defenses sought for must be magical. They must overcome all limits perceived in the self, at the same time making a new self-concept into which the old one cannot return. In a word, error is accepted as real and dealt with by illusions. Truth being brought to illusions, reality now becomes a threat and is perceived as evil. Love becomes feared because reality is love. Thus is the circle closed against the inroads of salvation. Illness is therefore a mistake and needs correction. And as we have already emphasized, correction cannot be achieved by first establishing the rightness of the mistake and then overlooking it. If illness is real, it cannot be overlooked in truth, for to overlook reality is insanity. Yet that is magic's purpose, to make illusions true through false perception. This cannot heal, for it opposes truth. Perhaps an illusion of health is substituted for a little while, but not for long. Fear cannot long be hidden by illusions, for it is part of them. It will escape and take another form, being the source of all illusions. Sickness is insanity because all sickness is mental illness, and in it there are no degrees. One of the illusions by which sickness is perceived as real is the belief that illness varies in intensity, that the degree of threat differs according to the form it takes. Herein lies the basis of all errors, for all of them are but attempts to compromise by seeing just a little bit of hell. This is a mockery so alien to God that it must be forever inconceivable. But the insane believe it because they are insane. A madman will defend his own illusions because in them he sees his own salvation. Thus, he will attack the one who tries to save him from them, believing that he is attacking him. This curious circle of attack, defense, is one of the most difficult problems with which the psychotherapist must deal. In fact, this is his central task, the core of psychotherapy. The therapist is seen as one who is attacking the patient's most cherished possession, his picture of himself. And since this picture has become the patient's security as he perceives it, the therapist cannot but be seen as a real source of danger, to be attacked and even killed. The psychotherapist then has a tremendous responsibility. He must meet attack without attack, and therefore without defense. It is his task to demonstrate that defenses are not necessary, and that defenselessness is strength. This must be his teaching, if his lesson is to be that sanity is safe. It cannot be too strongly emphasized that the insane believe that sanity is threat. This is the corollary of the original sin, the belief that guilt is real and fully justified. It is therefore the psychotherapist's function to teach that guilt, being unreal, cannot be justified, but neither is it safe, and thus it must remain unwanted as well as unreal. Salvation's single doctrine is the goal of all therapy. Relieve the mind of the insane burden of guilt it carries so warily, and healing is accomplished. The body is not cured. It is merely recognized as what it is. Seen rightly, its purpose can be understood. What is the need for sickness then? Given this single shift, all else will follow. There's no need for complicated change. There's no need for long analysis and wearying discussion and pursuits. The truth is simple, being one for all.
So one part really touched me about making sickness real, because now I feel like I've fully experienced the depths of that, as when I first had my heart attack in July, and I remained at peace, and then in December, even so deeply at peace that I wasn't afraid of the procedures and everything. But now, went in the hospital again, thought I was having a heart attack, but there's no judgment about the illness. It's just, and I can't even call it an illness anymore. It's an improper use of the word at this point. It's just another option in the myriads of choices to experience something. It's just an opportunity, if you will, and an experience of things. And so it no longer, I don't have to push it away. I don't have to say, I'm going to think about something else, or I'm going to have these positive thoughts. Like, none of that exists. It's just kind of in the moment, I'm experiencing this thing, and it becomes fascinating. It becomes an adventure. It's totally amazing to me how it's changed this entire experience of, having my aortic valve malfunction and eventually perhaps having a surgery to correct that if it's not. But I'm not even focused on correction. It's just in my present experiencing whatever it is that I'm experiencing fully and deeply, and being so immersed in it without all that attachment to I should be functioning this way or the judgment, all of that stuff. None of that stuff exists.
Interesting, Mary. Thank you so much for sharing your experience with that.
Yeah, good. Thank you.
Amazing, Mary. It
Yeah,
makes
I have-
perfect
I
sense. It's
have,
one of those times you hear the
know-
story and you're like, I don't know if I could do that.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry. I'm
No,
just
no,
on
no.
the heels of what Mary was saying.
Oh,
Like,
I
I just
know.
think that's such an awesome way to think. I mean, that's what it's all about, is being able to get to that place where you're simply, it's experiential and you're in that moment, and there's absolutely zero fear or attachment to outcome. It just is the way that it is, and you're just going to ride it out and experience it. So I think that's fabulous. I'm hoping to someday be able to reprogram enough to get to that space, because I see it and I get it, but I still question my ability to do it myself.
It's funny you say that, and I'll hand it over to Tim. I just wanted to remind everyone that when we first started reading today, in section 2, paragraph 2, it says, religion is experience, psychotherapy is experience. So it's interesting that you shared that as an experience, Mary. So that's all I wanted to say.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, Tim.
Yeah. Oh, no. There's no interruptions. I just, from my own experience a few weeks ago, I don't know, and the doctors can't figure it out, but Mary, you triggered this in me, and I woke up and my lower lip was swelling, and I had my wife take a picture of it just to document it for if I had to go to the doctors, and they got, where the whole mouth was involved, and then, decided to go to a patient's first here, and waited. Finally, he said, well, I could give you some Benadryl, and, we can get all that stuff. But he said, well, if it goes any further down your throat, I would definitely get to the emergency room or come back to us. Well, yeah, I wrote them off, but it did. And I lost my voice. And so I'm thinking, okay, well, this is curious. It's moving down. And so we got to the emergency room and knew the doctor personally, and very, very good experience. And, he prescribed, he said, well, we can't figure out what you're allergic to. We're going to get your general practitioner to get to a allergist, because this is an allergic reaction. And I had done nothing, absolutely nothing different the night before. No weird stings from any exotic pest or whatever. So nothing. It was like this thing ran its course, and I took a humorous picture of myself there in the room and so forth, and it was unreal. And so now, nothing's happening. And that now I'm having these weird spots here recently. I don't know if you can see those guys, but I think that's the island of Guam, where we almost went to. Not sure what's being sent through my skin and so forth to wake me up to something. But I look at it as like, okay, wow, what's on this channel, and try to be as dispassionate about it as I can. But then my point I was originally going to make is, one of my daughters is like, says, Dad, you've got to get off of all this gluten. It's like you had the COVID, so now I've got a little problem with my eye focus between eyes, and you get that handled, then your eyes will come back and all that. And I'm going, oh my God. You know, and so today I'm gonna go on my first, protein shake and all that stuff. And they're not gonna make me get off my coffee though. Anyway, the point about this is, if we listen to the relatives and the loved ones, I mean, they'll have you jumping through hoops that you may not want to jump through. I mean, I'll do this for a while, but for her, and we'll see, maybe something neat happens, but, I'm not attaching results to it. It's just another way. So it's like a map. I'm being shown, okay, well, instead of going this road to get there, let's go this road. Okay. It's like trying to be, I think Mary hit on it just right. It's like, it's sort of like you're getting a hand of cards is coming to me. And maybe it's a terrible hand. Maybe it's a really good hand. It's just another hand. It's a game. It's not real.
options, more experiences. Yeah.
Well, anyway.
All right. Anybody else have anything else they want to share regarding what we just read? Keep going.
Well, I
Maybe.
just kind of want to say to Tim that it's just a hand, but that doesn't mean that it doesn't have, that you disregard the fun that you're having in playing the game.
Yeah.
It's all about the focus on the experience rather than, the outcome and whatever. So it's not that it has no value. It has ultimate value in that you learn more of who you are and have joy and fun and love along the way.
Yeah, and honor my daughter too by,
New way
okay.
of the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, no, good.
How do you not lose sight of yourself in the midst of all experiences? How do you not lose the experience of your true self in the midst of all experiences?
Yeah.
Hmm.
Where are you reading that, Carol?
Oh, that was just came through me.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that.
Good.
Yeah, that's great.
In remembrance of Joe.
Yeah. Yeah, right. Exactly. Exactly. And then getting back to, what we just read too, was that it's all part of the illusion. All of it, right? I mean, in truth, we're eternal beings of light and love. And this body is just part of the illusion that we have decided that we are separate and all that it entails.
Yeah.
The first sentence in paragraph 8, sickness is insanity because all sickness
Oh,
is
yeah.
mental illness.
Right.
And in it, there are no degrees. So it basically is saying that every single one of us as separate beings are just out of our mind insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it is.
We can have a unified thought about that, Alicia.
What was the old expression? We're all bozos on this bus,
And one of the illusions by which sickness is perceived is the belief that illness varies in intensity, that the degree of threat differs according to the form it takes. So in my mind, is that saying that supposed terminal diagnosis of cancer is the same thing as having a hangnail? It's still a perception.
Yeah.
It's still a perception that there's something wrong with you. Is that?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what
I
it's
guess
saying.
it's how bad do you want it? How big, do you want a 2x4 up the side of the head or a 2x12, a steel beam, a car? Hey. Always be laughing.
That's right. That's right. All right, let's try to get one more in. One more read in before we close for the day. The process of healing. Well, truth is simple. It must still be taught to those who have already lost their way in endless mazes of complexity. This is the great illusion. In its wake comes the inevitable belief that, to be safe, one must control the unknown. This strange belief relies on certain steps, which never reach to consciousness. First, it is ushered in by the belief that there are forces to be overcome to be alive at all. And next, it seems as if these forces can be held at bay only by an inflated sense of self that holds in darkness what is truly felt and seeks to raise illusions to the light. Let us remember that the ones who come to us for help are bitterly afraid. What they believe will help can only harm. What they believe will harm can only help. Alone can help. Progress becomes impossible until the patient is persuaded to reverse his twisted way of looking at the world, his twisted way of looking at himself. The truth is simple, yet it must be taught to those who think it will endanger them. It must be taught to those who will attack because they feel endangered, and to those who need the lesson of defenselessness above all else to show them what is strength. If this world were ideal, there could perhaps be ideal therapy, and yet it would be useless in an ideal state. We speak of ideal teaching in a world in which the perfect teacher could not long remain. The perfect psychotherapist is but a glimmer of a thought not yet conceived. But still, we speak of what can yet be done in helping the insane with the bounds of the attainable. While they are sick, they can and must be helped. No more than that is asked of psychotherapy. No less than all he has to give is worthy of the therapist. For God himself holds out his brother as his savior from the world. Healing is holy. Nothing in the world is holier than helping one who asks for help. And two come very close to God in this attempt, however limited, however lacking in sincerity. Where two have joined for healing, God is there, and he has guaranteed that he will hear and answer them in truth. They can be sure that healing is a process he directs, because it is according to his will. We have his word to guide us as we try to help our brothers. Let us not forget that we are helpless of ourselves and lean upon a strength beyond our little scope for what to teach as well as what to learn. A brother seeking aid can bring us gifts beyond the heights perceived in any dream. He offers us salvation, for he comes to us as Christ and Savior. What he asks is asked by God through him, and what we do for him becomes the gift we give to God. The sacred calling of God's holy Son for help in his perceived distress can be but answered by his Father. Yet he needs a voice through which to speak his holy word, a hand to reach his Son and touch his heart. In such a process, who could not be healed? This holy interaction is the plan of God himself, by which his Son is saved. For two have joined, and now God's promises are kept by him. The limits laid on both the patient and the therapist will count as nothing, for the healing has begun. What they must start, their Father will complete, for he has never asked for more than just the smallest willingness, the least advance, the tiniest of whispers of his name, to ask for help. Whatever form it takes is but to call on him, and he will send his answer through the therapist who best can serve his Son and all his present needs. Perhaps the answer does not seem to be a gift from heaven. It may even seem to be a worsening and not a help. Yet, let the outcome not be judged by us. Somewhere, all gifts of God must be received. In time, no effort can be made in vain. It is not our perfection that is asked in our attempts to heal. We are deceived already if we think there is a need of healing. And the truth will come to us only through one who seems to share our dream of sickness. Let us help him to forgive himself for all the trespasses with which he would condemn himself without a cause. His healing is our own, and as we see the sinlessness in him come shining through the veil of guilt that shrouds the Son of God, we will behold in him the face of Christ and understand that it is but our own. Let us stand silently before God's will and do what it has chosen that we do. There is one way alone by which we come to where all dreams began, and it is there that we will lay them down to come away in peace forever. Hear a brother call for help and answer him. It will be God to whom you answer, for you called on him. There is no other way to hear his voice. There is no other way to seek his Son. There is no other way to find yourself. Holy is healing, for the Son of God returns to heaven through its kind embrace. For healing tells him, in the voice for God, that all his sins have been forgiven him. Well, that was powerful.
Yes, indeed. Wow.
And we always forget, right, that healing isn't of us, of our small self, right? A small s. It's always of the capital S, where we're aligned with the mind of God, where we allow that voice to come through, where we say, tell me what to say, where to go, what to do. And in that, we are all psychotherapists.
Yeah.
I like in the first paragraph where it basically says that the only way to truly be healed, it's the letting go of any attempts to control or judge. The first couple of sentences, truth is simple, must be taught by those who have already lost their way in endless mazes of complexity. This is the great illusion. And in its wake comes the inevitable belief that to be safe, one must control the unknown. And if you really, again, talk about the obvious in that statement, one must control the unknown, how impossible is that? You can't do anything about what you don't know anything about, but yet we think that we need to be able to guide and direct everything. Strange belief relies on certain steps which never reach to consciousness. So it's it was the other thing I talked about transcending, let's say, blah, 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 where we fail to recognize the conflicting, like what makes sense and what doesn't make sense. And we
Right.
it doesn't make sense because, just because. And that's just another way of saying kind of the same thing.
Right. Yeah.
As if it seems as if these forces can be held at bay only by an inflated sense of self that holds in darkness what is truly felt and seeks to raise illusions to the light.
Right.
So it's kind of like in our crazy minds try to make sense out of nonsense instead of just letting all that go and trying to control the unknown. Yeah,
Right.
it just reinforces it in a different way. It says the same thing that we've heard 100 times. It struck me differently that time.
Yeah.
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 How do you be available to help and yet not control by helping? That is also illusionary. Help is the sunny side of control when it goes into overdrive.
Yes,
That's right. That's
it's
right.
true.
And you're just facilitating the healing, right?
Yeah, just get out of the way.
Yeah.
And also part
Mhm.
of our, sometimes our wanting to help is buying into the idea that there is something wrong,
Right.
rather than
Oh,
just
yeah.
being in the presence of the wholeness of the whole thing. You know, if
Right.
somebody comes to you, it's usually because they have a problem. And sometimes even just saying, oh my goodness, let me help. It's basically saying, yeah, there is something wrong. So,
Mhm.
so
Valid.
again,
Yeah.
you got to be careful of the words and the attitude that you go into it with. And it all goes back to erasing just
Mhm.
everything is illusory, and that the true healing is to perceive that person as whole, healthy, healed.
Right.
So I guess that as someone who's dedicated their whole life to quote helping others with health related conditions, injuries, illness, and so on, if you're a nurse,
Mhm.
I don't know, how do you reconcile that whole thing?
Mhm.
It's fascinating. I'm back to Mary. It's like, it's fascinating. And I look over my shoulder, and in that process, but the illusion reinforces that you're actually doing something because my patients get better.
Mhm.
But
Mm.
am I helping to facilitate that by reinforcing that, oh, you had a knee replacement, you have pain and dysfunction here, let me help you? And acknowledging that there's something wrong, or is that strictly of them and their own personal journey? I don't know.
Yeah, I think
Yeah, but how many times have you worked on their mindset with them, Alicia?
Oh, every single time, you know,
Mhm.
Yeah, so
Every single
sickness is in the mind, right?
yeah,
yeah. And reinforcing, helping them to understand what they can do to help themselves, and how to look at it, and how to, help them help themselves.
Yeah.
Interesting. Wow, this has been huge today.
Yeah,
yeah.
Lots
really good.
of I could have had a V8 moments.
Well, here's a line from a song that came to me. I don't know why this stuff, but I guess it's appropriate. But it was bend me, shape me, any way you want me, long as you love me, it's all right.
Mhm.
Hey, God speaking, right?
Yeah, sure.
I mean, we go
sure.
through all these experiences, but if the love is there.
Yeah.
So anyway,
Well, this was a great day. Thank you everyone for showing up. I appreciate you being here, and we'll do it again next week. Woohoo!
yay.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank
everyone. Great
you so
conversations.
much.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks.
Bye-bye. Thanks, everyone.